How impressive is Liam Lawson so far at AlphaTauri? Finishing 9th at the Singapore Grand Prix, AlphaTauri's best result of the season. After coming in to replace the injured Daniel Ricciardo, he has outperformed Yuki Tsunoda easily in his first 3 races. You've got to think, when they first put Lawson in the car, the expectations must have just been keep it out of the barriers, get it to the finish line, and just try and do slightly better than Nick de Vries. Now, AlphaTauri haven't even confirmed what they're going to be called for next year, let alone their driver lineup. Pretty much everything's undecided. But there are currently 2 driver spots available and 3 drivers that could potentially take them, and there lies the problem. However, what if we saw a lineup next year at AlphaTauri of Ricciardo and Lawson for 2024? I personally think that would be amazing, and I think a lot of F1 fans would love to see that. You have the older Daniel Ricciardo, who could dish out his experience and everything he's learned to a team who would probably be quite grateful for it. And then you've got the younger Lawson, who is just on fire right now and is going to try and do everything he can to succeed and just prove himself at an F1 level. Ricciardo would also be a fantastic driver for Lawson just to understudy and just learn from. They would make a very successful partnership in a team which is just in dire need of just some consistency and some stable drivers after the nightmare that they've had so far this season. As I said, they need consistent drivers, and they need ones who can be ready just to pick up the points in the rare cases they become available. And also at this level, you need drivers just with a good head on their shoulders. It's a lineup that I think most F1 fans would be intrigued by, and I think it's a lineup that a lot of F1 fans would love to see. So on that basis, it's nailed on. It's bound to happen, right? Well, no, for 2 reasons. 1, Yuki Tsunoda. Number 2, Honda. Yuki Tsunoda has a long-term relationship with Honda ever since from his first days in the junior categories all the way up till now. With Honda's engine agreement currently with Red Bull, which naturally trickles down to AlphaTauri, there's an agreement where of the 4 seats available in these teams, one of these drivers has to be a Honda driver. Now, it's definitely not going to be in a Red Bull, but it can absolutely happen in an AlphaTauri. In the recent past, Honda have always tried to push their young Japanese driver and nurture them through the younger categories up to Formula 1 with the hope of them getting a regular seat and that elusive first win, which a Japanese driver currently has not had in Formula 1. And I have to say, it's a setup which, to be honest, has failed more times than it succeeded. And teams know surely at this stage, if you're going to partner up with Honda, you are going to have to give up control, or who has the say, on one of your race seats. But let's say Yuki Tsunoda didn't have the Honda backing, or suddenly Honda pulled out of the sport, which they have a habit of doing. Could he stand on his own 2 feet? Probably not. I don't think so. The thing is, so far up to the halfway point of the season, thanks to Nick de Vries, his results have looked a lot better than they actually are. Okay, he might be driving an absolute shed of a car, but all this time, all we've had to compare him to was Nick de Vries. In that situation, he can't lose, really. And so far this season, he's picked up a total of 3 points. So then de Vries gets sacked on the basis of poor performance. Daniel Ricciardo gets brought in from Red Bull. And in his first outing, Ricciardo beats Tsunoda. Okay, that's interesting. And then in the next race, Tsunoda pulls it back and scores a point whilst Ricciardo finishes 16th. Bear in mind though, that's only Tsunoda's 3rd points finish of the season. And then Ricciardo gets injured, so Lawson is then fired into the car. And as I said earlier, the expectations for Lawson at this short notice were just get the car over the line at the end with as much of the car left in one piece as possible. And then he did just that. He got it over the line ahead of Tsunoda, and then he did it again. And then at Singapore, he did it again, 9th place, a points position ahead of Tsunoda, who went out on the first lap. And not only that, it was AlphaTauri's highest finishing position of the season so far. So with all this in mind, if I was Tsunoda, I would start to be feeling a little concerned by now. So let's just take a little look at Yuki Tsunoda then. He's never finished higher in the final standings of the championship than his teammates. He was beaten by Pierre Gasly 2 years in a row at AlphaTauri, and it looks like with de Vries as a teammate, it was going to be smooth sailing. But now, Ricciardo came along, and now, even worse, Lawson's come along. So there is now a possibility that Tsunoda could be beaten by his teammate 3 years in a row, and even worse, a much less experienced teammate in Lawson. But this is only if AlphaTauri decide to keep Lawson on, of course. But let's say AlphaTauri bring Ricciardo back once he's fit. I could easily see Ricciardo picking up points where Tsunoda doesn't. Should either Lawson or Ricciardo beat Tsunoda in the final standings at the end of this year, some serious conversations are going to have to be had between Red Bull and Honda. You know, there might be performance clauses or something like that within their arrangements, but unfortunately it looks like that won't happen because Tsunoda has his lovely, warm, fluffy pillow made of Honda backing. The thing is, Tsunoda, he's not performing well enough to guarantee him a seat for next season, but at the same time, he's not doing badly enough to warrant him just getting booted out immediately, and for Red Bull and Honda just to drop him outright. Tsunoda's in a weird position where he will need to have some truly catastrophic races until the end of the season to warrant this conversation that could happen between Red Bull and Honda. Because of this arrangement that he has, he's pretty much got to do just above the bare minimum to secure this seat for 2024, and depressingly, I think that is exactly what's going to happen. He'll do just above the minimum and stay in Honda's good books, and that's kind of the way it always has been with them. The thing is, Honda have an enormous sense of national pride, and they've always wanted to have a Japanese driver sat just in front of their Japanese engine. That's the way that Honda have always wanted to do it. And with the Japanese Grand Prix coming up, and with Tsunoda's recent performances, he is really going to be under the magnifying glass now. But just like Honda have with Tsunoda, Red Bull are going to want to have a look at Lawson, as they've invested in him from a very early age through the younger formulas. And same as Honda, Red Bull are going to want to see one of their proteges in an AlphaTauri seat for next year. And most importantly as well, see a return on their investments. Now the thing is as well, with both of these big blocks wanting to push their own talent, you know, with Honda and Red Bull pushing their talent, this unfortunately leaves Ricciardo out in the cold. And I think this is a big mistake and a massive shame, because I think a driver like Ricciardo has a lot to offer AlphaTauri, and they'd be stupid to turn him down. A Lawson-Ricciardo lineup at AlphaTauri for 2024 gives that perfect blend of experience and hunger all together. I think Yuki Tsunoda's now, he's had his chance at AlphaTauri. It's been 2.5 years and his career has been very forgettable. Yeah, on Drive to Survive he comes across as a nice guy and everything, but most of his career I think is famous for just swearing on the team radio. A driver is at AlphaTauri for either two reasons. You are an experienced seasoned driver looking to hand over your support and your knowledge to the team in order to build it up, or you're a young and hungry driver looking to move on to bigger and better things, whether that's either with Red Bull or a bigger team like Ferrari or McLaren. And right now Tsunoda is neither of those things. But coming back to his Honda backing, I think it is very likely that we're going to see Tsunoda in a seat for 2024, and most probably Lawson alongside him. But just as a final plea, Red Bull, please put Lawson and Ricciardo together. I think it's what all the fans want. It's definitely the most intriguing lineup you've got. Tsunoda's had his chance now, he hasn't really done anything. You know it makes sense, it's a great move commercially, and AlphaTauri might actually sell some merchandise, which would be a good move. And it would just get some people talking about the team, because currently it's fallen away a lot. But where does Honda leaving Red Bull for Aston Martin in 2026 leave Yuki Tsunoda? What's he going to do? Is he going to be left high and dry, or is he going to go to Aston Martin? What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe. Many thanks for the support so far, and look forward to seeing you again soon.